Hey man, I'm Jusko from ProbMoney.com. In this video, we're going to do a little credit score 101 and answer the question, what credit score do you start with? Do you start from 0 and work your way up, or do you start from a perfect score and maybe get docked along the way from that perfect score? That's what we are going to talk about. Now, nobody starts from a 0 credit score. I'll say that right off the bat because actually the credit scoring models start at 300 as the very lowest and can go all the way up to 850. So you're not going to start at 0. For most people, where you are actually going to start is probably somewhere in the 650 to 700 range when you get your very first credit score. Some people might be a little bit over 700, but that is pretty much where most people are going to land. Now, once you have your first credit score, that doesn't mean that's going to be your credit score forever. And if it is a little on the higher end of that range I just said, you shouldn't get too excited, because that initial credit score is based on not a lot of data. So what you want to be doing is trying to sort of build up that foundation, make that credit score stronger so that number maybe means a little bit more over the long haul. And so that means making sure that you make your credit card payments on time or installment loan payments on time, not open up too many credit cards or installment loans over a short period of time, and a lot of things of that nature. All right, so let's break that down a little bit. If I say that most people start with a credit score between 650 and 700, you might think to yourself, well, why do some people start with a credit score that is higher or lower than other people? That doesn't seem fair. Well, in truth, everyone sort of does start with the same credit score, but that credit score is nothing, nil. It's sort of like if you had a test to take and someone asked you what you got on the test before you actually took it. You haven't actually done anything yet. You don't have a score until there actually is some data about how you have done, right? And it is the same thing with a credit score. When you start out, until the credit agencies know something about you, they can't calculate a credit score. So until you have your first credit cards or your first installment loans or student loans, whatever, there isn't going to be a way to calculate a credit score. So you're not actually going to have a credit score until about 3 to 6 months of actual data is available on you. So when you get that first credit card or you have that first installment loan, whatever, it is going to take a little bit of time to see if you make those payments on time, how big the credit limit is on your credit cards, all of those sorts of things. And then once there is some data about you, that's when your first credit score is going to be established, which means everyone's going to have slightly different data when they start out, which means everyone's going to have a slightly different credit score, but for most people, they're going to fall in that range that I said. Now, once you have your credit score established, you should know, especially if it's on the higher end and you're feeling pretty good about yourself, you should know that that credit score is very temporary and very fragile because it is based on not much data about you, and anything that you do going forward can easily influence that score to the negative or the positive very quickly. So that means if you miss a payment, even if you're sitting at 700, you could see that slide very quickly. In addition, many lenders, if they look at your credit score, say it's 700, they are going to be a little more skeptical of you if you have a credit score based on very limited data. This is what they call a thin file, when you don't have a whole lot of data under your belt yet. So a lender might see what your credit score is and you might think, well, that's great. They are going to give me the new credit card or the new loan or whatever, but they might also look at the fact that you don't have very much credit history. It's not only about your credit score when it comes to getting new credit or getting new loans. So the length of your credit history is also going to be important to lenders. Now, if I'm telling you that most people start between a 650 and a 700 credit score, you might ask, well, who's sitting down there at 300 to 600? Well, those are going to be people that have had some credit and haven't done very well with it. And that can happen to you even as somebody who is new to credit, especially if you don't make your first credit card payments or you don't make your first payment on an installment loan. So you could find yourself sliding down into that area very quickly. And once you're in that bad credit area, it can be tough to get out again, not only because you then have to make a lot of on-time payments to make up for whatever you've done wrong, but it also might be difficult for you to get new credit, which could help your credit score in the future. So you then can very quickly box yourself into a place where you can't very easily climb out. Now, like I said, if you are new to credit, doing the right things can influence your credit score to the upside very quickly. So if you don't start out very well, you have an easier time climbing out than somebody that has a longer credit history and is sitting in that area between 300 and 600. So no matter what credit score you start with, don't get too high on yourself, don't get too low on yourself, because it is based on a limited amount of data and you still have a huge opportunity to influence that number to the upside in the short term. So if you do the right things, especially within the first couple years after you have first established a credit history, you can move things to the upside very quickly. Now obviously you can move them to the downside very quickly as well, but this is really the opportunity for you to get it right, because after those first couple of years, after there is some data about you, it is going to be more of a slog to get that credit score higher if you are in a place that you don't want to be. So that is it for this video. Questions, comments, would love to hear them in that comments section below. If you don't have any questions or comments, the next thing you are going to want to do is watch that video.